Nature's Neighbor. I'm your host, Melanie Blankenship. I'm actually joined with my guest today because guess what, guys? My co-host is late again. Josh will be coming in hot anytime soon. Well, so I keep listening because I know he's coming, but he's just running a little bit behind. But here we are on this beautiful Monday, first Monday of August. Yes, weather. We have to talk, Jesse. We have to talk a little weather before we get started because you said it right when we walked in. It's starting to actually act like summer, and it's summer yet. 100 plus, and normally North County in August, you driving with no air conditioning wouldn't have been as comfortable as it was somewhat coming from a gentleman who's obviously coming from the coast. I have sitting next to me Jesse Trace of, I'm going to just say your farm. It's Traceland Organics, right?
That's right.
Yes, yeah. And so, but he's also part of the organization CAF, which we'll get into. Super excited to have you on because your category, in a sense, with CAF is groundwater. Help me, groundwater.
Yeah, groundwater community organizer.
That's it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that discussion going on around this community right now with the vote that just took place at City Hall on Friday. The vote was the Prop 216 protest against a newly formed board, Paso Robles Groundwater Basement Management Board.
The Paso Robles Area Groundwater Authority, a.k.a. Praga.
All those names and all those pronouns. Yeah, we'll get into that one too. But yes, that board was just formed. They were, putting together the structure of this board, trying to create fees that would generate money to be able to go towards infrastructure and management when it came to managing our Paso Robles basin, water basin. Okay. So legislation has allowed us a Prop 218 protest vote. What did that mean? All property owners had the rights to protest against this fee, not against the actual formation of the board. Let me get that really clear because a lot of people think that the board is gone. No, it's just the protest was specifically for that fee that they were creating and we're going to implement. So where are we at now? Well, there's a lot to get into this. And so, Jesse, I'm just going to let you take over. Excuse my co-host when he walks in because he's going to come in here crazy hot. So, Jesse, introduce yourself and give us the all hats that you wear, please.
All right. Yeah, better late than never, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Jesse. I work for the Community Alliance with Family Farmers. I'm technically a groundwater community engagement contractor. So I'm a contractor. I'm not an employee. And that was just essentially to get boots on the ground in counties all over California. So I've been working for CAF for since September. So going on a year here, I've learned a ton. Mm-hmm. Like we were talking about earlier, before this, I worked in conservation a little bit, and I work on my family farm. It's been a great place for me to land coming back from my work and life abroad where I lived in Costa Rica. So yeah, came back to the family farm, been working there. We grow avocados and flowers. In fact, I brought you a little something, Melanie.
Well, did you know my reasoning for always living in California was because of that fruit? So
that's right. Well, that's why my family moved here from Chicago.
People don't understand. It's like the craziness of California is one thing. Thank you very much. I saw you tying something up.
Yeah,
I didn't see you put him in there. So thank you very much. It's funny because, like I said, craziness of California, the cost of living, just the craziness, right? I'm just going to end it with craziness. Can always be justified by when this ripens. Honestly, I am that person too. I mean, I grew up with these, right? This is I mean, avocados, we'd go to Morro Bay, right, when I was younger and go get our box of avocados for the week. That's how I grew up. And it was funny going to college or traveling abroad. Nothing is better than coming home and having a California avocado. And as I, grew up, became a mother, the first baby food I introduced my children was avocados. So I used to think I was going to turn my children green with the amount of avocados I fed. So yes, my children are very spoiled because this was baby food also for my kids. So
glistening skin and hair.
Oh,
yeah.
well.
I mean, you get all those good,
I
healthy
can grow all my kids
vegetable
can grow,
fats.
Yes, but yeah. So thank you so much for my gift, but also talk a little bit about Traceland. So when did you guys plant?
Yeah. So I wrapped up your late harvest Hass avocados, which we don't start picking until around the 4th of July. And because we're the furthest north in California to grow Hass avocados, we're the latest to market. So it's about 4th of July to Thanksgiving is our harvest, but the fruit will stay on the trees even longer than that. I mean, we've had fruit on the trees for 2 years. So we start picking at around 15, 16 months on the tree. Not quite an elephant pregnancy, but pretty close.
Yep.
So, the family farm was where I worked when I came back from being abroad, and it's hard to make a living. And so I slowly started branching out, had a place to land coming from Costa Rica where I studied, and was able to get work initially in watershed conservation, and then later working for CAF. So you got to have that off-farm income, right? That's it really is the whole family working together. My dad's on the tractor, my mom's picking the beans, my wife's, got her flower beds going. We have one employee. Farrell is a fantastic helper, and he's picking the avocados. I'm running around doing the gopher thing. And so we're really got a full head of steam now, and but it started 25 years ago when my family was looking to do just like you said, to eat from the land year round, and especially to grow avocados and citrus, and we're blessed with the banana belt in California along the coast to be able to do that.
I talk about this all the time, but there's honestly no better place, because I mean, there's nothing you can't dream of when it comes to food that can't be produced here. I mean, Cody, my son, said that you're growing coffee too.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your coffee.
Yeah. So this is a 5-year project. So it started during COVID when I learned about it and realized it was possible. Came from Costa Rica, where I studied and saw and tasted the amazing specialty coffee. And, it's a similar thing. It's the Arabica species and cultivars. They want a mild, cool climate with a pronounced dry season, and the tropics, the highland tropics, have that. And so we planted 5 years ago. We're just starting to get our first harvest, picking everything, realizing I got a bunch of cherry duds with no beans in them. So we're learning as we go. It's a small little, we have several rows, so about 45 trees that are mature. Just planted a few more, but it's enough. Coffee is
like avocados. Over time they'll become mature, right? And the production will come on. It just takes it a while, just like any other fruit tree.
Exactly.
And it's got to get into maturity. So you're in Morro Bay.
That's right.
And okay, so you got that coastal influence, coastal fog, but you find yourself with the organization that you work with, CAF, trying to help educate, gather farmers, right? You're creating a community and having the topic of groundwater, right? I commend you because, people, this is a hard topic. Somebody like me who has sat in political positions, have been a farmer for as long as I have, just been, community member of North County for so long, 50 years, I'm 50, I'll just tell you. You know, yes, I moved away and came home as fast as I could, but the topic of water my whole life has had conflict when it came to the topic of water. California in itself, I mean, there's sayings, you know, you can fight, but, you know, water is everything in the fight of living in California or living on the western side of the United States. You know, it's crazy to me to understand what I grew up with here in this community, and that is we didn't irrigate. Nobody had irrigation. Everything was dry farms. The vineyards, the Ducey vineyards, all these guys, they were the Pizzenis. All of these guys were known for their dry farmed vineyards, right? People traveled the world to come and see and taste dry farmed wines. You know, we had hay and, you know, forage, safflower. You know, these are all non-irrigated crops. You know, fast forward to about 20, 25 years ago now, things started to change. Irrigation became the topic, right? And then development and the massive use of water. People think, oh, development and new housing, right? Yes, we all turn our taps on and we have water that comes to us, right? But nobody talks about the amount of fresh water use when you flush the toilet, when you live inside of a city. And so, you know, there's those conversations that are not being had, but we as farmers are constantly having the discussion about water. And I commend you for the job that you have taken and trying to gather people and educate. So here you have this platform. What is your introduction in the first topic of groundwater do you start with in educating community farmers?
Yeah, thank you for making this space for me to speak to the community. It's probably been as hard as holding down a farm or anything else. You know, it requires constant attention, commitment, and hard work to keep it going.
Patience and learning how to not get frustrated, probably too. I'll give it to you. It's hard to explain stuff that has been taking place for many years to somebody that just figured out that this is going on.
And when it's in real time, you don't always have all the answers.
No.
And we're humans are imperfect and we're working with what we got. And I don't have all the answers, but I do have a lot. So great topic, water. It is, you know, for fighting and whiskey's for drinking, as the old adage goes. And there's only so much. It's a limited resource. A whole lot of it these days runs off the landscape and down into the creeks and into the reservoirs, if we have any, and out into the ocean. And the broader story that I want to tell is really how we've changed the landscape. And I give talks at the public libraries in SLO County on this, so that the water doesn't sink into the ground anymore. You correctly stated the past agricultural uses of this county. I know you've experienced a lot of them. Your family has been here for a long time, so you know how things have changed. And and the aquifer in Paso Robles is in trouble. And really, there's a great image of it, and I have a document for anyone that needs that we developed at CAF in concert with the Department of Water Resources and the GSAs to make sure that it was vetted and factual. And it essentially shows a line graph that in the 80s went way down, came back up in the 90s, and now has just been on this downward trajectory and continues to plummet. And even after two big rain years in 22-23 and 23-24, it's still going down. And one of the main water uses in the basin, well, first to say 93% of all water used in the basin is agriculture. So the city of Paso uses quite a bit of surface water from Lake Nacimiento. It's more expensive than groundwater, but they're doing their part. Again, it's not perfect. These are systems that where everyone's working their hardest at to develop. But yeah,
Have they gotten Nacimiento online yet?
I don't know.
Yeah,
good question.
I'm gonna step in on that
Yeah.
one because no, it hasn't. Not
Right.
yet. We're still paying for water we can't be delivered yet. So there's that concept. And yes, agriculture. Oh, we're gonna take a $5. This is where live podcasts are really fun. You have a horrible T-shirt on too.
I featured for you, and I stopped work.
Can you guys hear? Josh has arrived. Finally,
Through the traffic of Paso Robles.
Right timing is everything, right?
Let's hear it.
We're having the discussion of
Howdy, Jesse.
having the discussion
Josh?
of educating our neighbors and community farmers
Yeah.
about groundwater, and specifically about the basin because of our vote that we had on Friday. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we did this really quick, and so we're going to continue this conversation because we have a lot to
We got
get
props.
into it. Oh, he's got props. I wasn't going to share it on, thank you. But at the same time, we have to get to this because there are a lot of people that have questions because of the publicity and the, what is a Proposition 218? The vote that has taken place this last Friday that did play in favor to the landowners. Prop 218 protest was won. They did win the protest. What does that mean? That fee that was created is not going to be implemented. The board is still there, and there's still other options to move forward with this, right? You were sharing before Josh walked in that, agriculture is a larger percentage of it. The city of Paso, there's all these takers, right, of this basin. And yes, we all know that there has been more use in the last 20 years of that water than there is being put back in there. We've known,
Correct.
Locals have known for years that it takes rivers running to fill those basins. So continue on the conversation. I'm sorry to step in. I just know the Nacimiento pipeline very well. I've been watching it like a hawk, and the reason is because of the amount of money that has been spent on it, and the advertisement of it, and the use of that word continuously in Paso Robles politics drives me insane. Because why do we keep banking on that water when it hasn't even been delivered for the first output or withdrawal that we said, oh, we're going to build this because we have Nacimiento water pipeline, and it's not even being delivered and being managed properly yet. So with that, I'm going to let you continue. City of Paso's got some questions in my mind that need to be answered, but I'll let you continue.
Great. Yeah. So I'll quickly hand this gift over to Josh. I brought you some of the family's avocados. It's in
nice.
a calf
Lucky.
bandana.
Okay.
In case you need to cover your neck when you're out there.
Happens, yeah.
Yeah. Nice to see you, and look forward to.
So yes, boys, you do get sunburned in the fog. I take it, huh? Well, I'm the only
Fog
North
burn,
County.
we call it.
Yeah, fog burn. I'm the only North County person. These boys get to live in the natural air conditioning.
I was up here in North County all day yesterday. And
Oh, okay. So you got.
so
a
I
little
could
warm-
have come in handy then for sure.
Yeah, you're a little pink. So
Yeah.
you've been in the sun. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I
All right,
know.
Jess. Now we got
Yeah.
our greetings. We're back. So
All right.
keep educating, Jess.
Sounds good. Yeah. So yeah. 93% of the water in the basin, in the groundwater basin, which essentially goes from, I guess it's east of Atascadero is the southwest corner, and then it goes all the way east. So on the other side of the Salinas River, it goes all the way east over to just about California Valley. There's like a tendril that kind of goes down along the San Juan, and then it goes all the way north up to Cholame,
Shalem.
Shalem.
I'm going to correct you because I'm
I was going to ask
local.
for a correction. And then it
That's
goes
okay.
all the way
Shalom.
west to San Miguel.
Yep.
And it goes a little past the Salinas River to the west and goes up to the imaginary county line. So the basin itself actually extends further north, but what SLO County manages is that area. That's a big area. It's small compared to the valley,
Yeah.
but it's
I always question, I'm going to put this question
big
in your
for
mind.
us. Yeah.
You know, we know, and anybody that has studied the basin, that the deeper part of the basin, the topography and the depth of the basin is to the north and more towards Monterey County. Monterey County does have part of the Paso Basin, right? Doesn't talk about severity. So I'm always curious with the amount of amount of water that is coming out of that out of that dam, and that Salinas River is constantly flowing. Is it filling the basin? I'm going to put that question. I'm just going to put that question because they have part of the basin, the Monterey County, and yes, that line that imaginary county line stops, right? But yet the basin doesn't know. You know, it's
imaginary.
It's imaginary.
It's political.
It's very political.
And yeah, so essentially those are kind of the parameters of the basin, right? And then you've got two kinds of aquifers. So you've got the alluvial aquifer, which you're alluding to,
Rivers,
which are the rivers that generally have a lot more gravel and sand sediments, so they sink in water deeper, right? They've been dragged from the mountains and other areas. And then you've got the deep sediment aquifer. And that is everywhere where there isn't a creek or a river. And that is much deeper, right? So the water table is significantly lower, right? So that's kind of the scene of the aquifer. It's unique. So in the south, there's certain areas where it's really problematic. It's what the Department of Water Resources has called areas of severe decline, where the groundwater continues to go down, the groundwater level, year after year. We've got about 23 wells that are part of the regional monitoring site network. Now, we need a lot more. For example, the Slow Valley groundwater basin, which is also a high priority basin. Paso Robles and Slow Valley are the two high priority basins in SLO County. That one's got just as many regional monitoring sites, right? So we don't have enough in Paso. And what we do have gives us a sense of what's going on, but it's certainly not enough. And what we see is that areas like El Pomar Junction, the aquifer is composed of clays and layers of clay, and so the recharge is much slower. That's a pretty bad area. Then east of the airport is another area of severe decline. So I'm happy to connect with folks and small farmers and anyone that's curious about this and show them a map. It really helps to see what's going on. But there's one other area, and that's kind of southwest of Shandon. Those are the three areas of severe decline. And so what we know is that there are areas that are worse off. There's significantly more pumping in those areas. They recharge slower, and the aquifer volume overall has gone down, going back to this line graph that I was telling you about. You know, in the 80s it went down, and then the 90s there was a really wet decade. And it went from like 100,000 acre feet, which is 325,000 gallons. So it's one football field covered in a foot of water, essentially, is how we measure water in the big picture in California, right? So 100,000 acre feet was kind of where it was in the 90s. It came back from a low in the 1980s, and then it's been going down and down and down, and now we're at a deficit of 700,000 acre feet. So low that we've had 7% of the state's reported dry wells. Reported. Not a lot of people want to report.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the scene. I've met small farmers and small business owners whose wells have gone dry. Generally, the farmers are the last ones to go dry because they don't have as shallow of wells. But, I'm hearing about 500-foot wells that are
Yep.
going dry.
In different areas, but then
That's right.
and then in some areas there's 100-foot wells right now where that's like very shallow and have huge amounts of water. And again, that is where I don't know. I guess I'm just going to give my opinion on this is the fact that here I've been doing some kind of agriculture in my life in this county, and yes, we went from years with no farming with a well. And now here we're farming with the well. And at the same time, we're all sitting here going, it's how big and how different each little area has their issues, right? So how do we educate such a broad area? You know what I mean? Because there are drastic difference. And you hear it in our meetings. You hear, well, I don't have that problem. My well is only at this depth. Oh, I don't, you know what I mean? You hear this all the time. And when are we as a community going to actually get together and go, okay, well, in this conference of an area, we need to work better together because this is our issue here, and vice versa on the other sides of this. For instance, I just got word that San Miguel Community Services District is talking about the fact that they can't manage their community service district and that they're struggling keeping up with the actual management of their own district, which is, guys, this is a municipality. This is your communities that are managing your water and your sewer. And they're right now, and they're literally dead center of the basin, right? And they're struggling as a management system to be able to manage and get the accurate information out to their users. What are we doing, Jesse? We need to gather people. We need to group people, and we need to educate. And yes, I've been hearing how long that there's been problems with our basin, and yet here we are. Yes, the overall consensus that you and I had, the discussion before the show, was that people are mad. People are frustrated. Even after the win of the protest, people are frustrated. I mean, I've been getting a lot of phone calls. I know it sounds like you were at the meeting. The meeting that I'm referring to was the protest vote that took place at the city of Paso at 10 o'clock on Friday at City Hall. Mm-hmm. And what they were doing was they had all the ballots and they were counting the ballots. The board that formed this and people that were authorized to count ballots, they counted the ballots there. So you were there with them in this meeting as it was being counted. Give a little bit of overview in what you heard from our neighbors in that meeting.
Yeah. And just to point out really quickly where Josh lives is another overdrafted groundwater basin.
Yeah, we do have our own problems there.
Right. And so this is an issue.
Sewer.
Right.
And you can't have a sewer without fresh water, people. People need to understand this. Sewer is fresh water. Just when you hear sewer problems, just think fresh water, okay? That's
right. So this is an area that's a problem that's widespread around California. And yeah, back to the Prop 218 protest. Mm-hmm. So, just to unpack essentially what the state of California has done in order to try and manage its groundwater basins is in 2014 it passed a law called SGMA, the State Groundwater Management Act, right? And that was in 2014. And that said, okay, if you're an overdrafted groundwater basin, you've got to get that thing balanced by 2040. Seems like a lot of time, but the gears of government move slowly. And so one of the it doesn't mean we don't need them. One of the the two main things that I want you to know about SGMA. One is that they weren't going to touch water rights. So water rights are not part of this. Everyone that has water rights is going to keep them, whether it be overlying, appropriative, riparian, what have you. And the second thing to know is is that, there's going to be some charges. And it gave local communities power to manage their basins. And so, 2014 was actually 2013 was the county ag offset ordinance in the Paso Robles Basin. And so if you wanted to plant any other crops and irrigate them, you had to offset. So this is all kind of happening at the same time, right?
Offset means that you're a property owner of multiple APNs and
Correct.
you take one out of production and go to another one. Like that was outside
That's
of the
right.
basin area,
Right.
right? So that's what offsetting is for a lot of people that don't understand what that meant. So, but you have to be a multi-property owner and you have to have property that is outside the basin.
Right. So, 2014 Sigma starts. 2016 was the A and B. I think 15, which was Cacho Donagen. They tried to get a water district going, so a special district going, and have the entire basin be managed rather than have groundwater sustainability agencies of different groups. The whole thing was going to be managed together. It seemed like a good idea. It seemed like there was good representation, and it was rejected by 75%. So that happened. Then I think it was 2017 or 18, the GSAs were formed. So you got the El Pomar Creston Water District, which became a GSA Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
That one's new.
Yeah, which has power from the state to manage the basin. The Shandon San Juan Water District, that is now a GSA. The city of Paso Robles, the city of San Miguel, and the county of San Luis Obispo. And those formed an MOA, a memorandum of agreement in order to work together and advise themselves to manage the basin. It didn't have any couldn't hold a bank account, so it didn't really have any administrative power other than advisory. So got that going. That was 5 of these groups working together. 2020, they put together the GSP, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, which is what you have to do when you have an overdrafted basin. And then it wasn't until 22 or 23 that it was approved by the Department of Water Resources. So now we're coming up pretty close on the present. And around that time, so end of last year, 2024, 2025, the PBCC, the Paso Basin Cooperative Committee, switched to a JPA from an MOA, a Joint Powers Authority, in order to have authoritative actions, to get a bank account, to manage the basin and make decisions with authority, essentially. It was the legal framework that they needed.
23, wasn't it? 2023 is when that happened.
When that happened?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now they're essentially trying to get an assessment. And that's what the Prop 218 was. They're trying to fund the management of the basin, which is not going to be cheap. A lot of concerns I've heard from people is that it could be less expensive, but it costs money to pay for administration, to keep the lights on, and to get experts to figure this stuff out and manage the basin. And so the budget was set at $3.5 million. And I know that seems like a lot annually. And
It's a large area.
It's a large area.
Yep.
And that was one of the main concerns.
My sadness, I'm just going to put it out there. My sadness still is the fact that we're trying to govern such a large, and I say I'm not for the way that this is set up, but we're trying to form or govern a large area that is so diverse in just a few 10 miles, 20 miles. It's different. It's, and we can see it, yes, but we also know it because look at the science behind it. And instead of us having such a large overlier of it, why aren't we creating better community systems? But I keep asking that, but yet here I'm using an example like San Miguel. Look at the amount of development and industry that the community of San Miguel has recently to be able to say, how is this not working? When they're exactly example of, when you have a community that starts to move and develop, you got farmers, you got industry, you got cities, you form a municipality, and there it is, right? And you work within your system. You have your local board, you have your local meetings where you're out educating your community of what problems you're having, what issues you have, what money you have in the bank. Everything's supposed to be transparent, and we're supposed to know how things are going in the communities that we live. How do we change this? How do we get this to another system where more people are more aware of the ground that they're standing on, or where they're calling their home, or where they're calling their farm? Like, I couldn't believe how many people in the last 6 months that have reached out or ran into me that wanted to ask me questions about the basin, and they've been farming and they had no idea that any of this was even going on. And I'm like, and then how sadly most people didn't know about how these boards are formed, what Prop 218 is, and now Prop 26. I mean, nobody knows what these are. So are you able and willing to get out there and educate them on what Prop 26 is? Like, I think we need to go back a little bit on this conversation and talk about, what do you, as the organization that you're representing, what is your guys' path of education when it comes to groundwater management? How do you guys see yourselves helping small farmers understand what's below them and how to best manage it?
Yeah. It's a great question, Melanie. I think a quick correction: the JPA that was formed, which is called the Paso Robles Area Groundwater Authority, that was in 2023, end of 2023. That excluded San Miguel.
Yeah.
So San Miguel,
because it already had its own municipality.
Yeah. So, right? We're not really ready to take this next step. They were part of the PBCC.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the peanut butter and jelly.
Like all these acronyms, people? Like, are you? How do you know what all these mean? You're struggling over here.
I have not looked into the Paso groundwater basin in a few years. I remember when it got adjudicated, and then we've had our own saltwater intrusion and lots of issues down in the Los Osos basin. So, I am just listening, trying to see, what, all of our processes we've been talking about. How do we find that accountability, and how do we hold, ourselves and our community, members and neighbors to, those responsibilities, and really keep the ball rolling. I think things kind of form, they gain energy, they dissipate, or people are really into those issues. I know Paso was like the hottest, groundwater table issue for a long time. And that's where, it was really countywide.
We
but
had moratoriums.
More specifically, I haven't
We kind of
caught
panicked, right? The community kind of panicked when these talks of severities happened with the Paso groundwater basin. Yeah. And we started putting moratoriums on things, no planting, then the offset program kicked in. And then even during a moratorium, people were witnessing massive plantings happen and massive irrigation. People didn't understand what, the charts of, water accessibility. If there was alfalfa there once before, you could offset that and say that you're growing vineyards because there once was alfalfa there. There was a lot of that, and it's still going on. I mean, people can prove that, old almond orchards that once were on your land, even though they were dry farmed, they were almonds, right? So they once might have had irrigation. The charts of use of water allows of certain water usage when it comes to certain levels of agriculture that will say, okay, so there was an orchard there, but now you're going to go do row cropping, right? Which row cropping takes less than an almond orchard. So there's
It can.
it can,
Yeah,
right?
it
And
all
and all
depends.
this is like
It
it
all
can,
depends.
right? Because most grape vineyards don't really need that much water.
Like you said earlier, people were flocking to Paso for the great terroir and the dry farmed wine, and now most of it's irrigated. And if you look at the GSP, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, and you look at the map, you can see that the majority of the crops in the basin are wine, and it's no surprise. It's become really famous. And just a quick reference to what Josh said earlier, the basin hasn't been adjudicated, and that's where we can't figure it out. The different organizations can't figure it out,
maybe,
and they go to a court of law and let a judge decide. But there was what a lot of people refer to was a quiet title lawsuit, and that was with Steinbeck Vineyard, Cindy against what I think is the county.
County of San Luis Obispo.
That's
Yes,
right.
it is.
Right.
And there was
so-
multiple other property owners that are also
Yep.
a part of the quiet title. And I think they're
That's
at
right.
like level 5 in their lawsuits. And so far, they've come to resolutions on each one of them, but the county keeps coming back with more and more. And yes, we can write regulation. We can write, all these little entities that we think are going to benefit. But when it comes down to it, if you can afford to hire an attorney and go into court, that's where everything's going to get answered.
Mm-hmm. That's where it can get answered, and that's what that party has been right, and most people can't, and the CAF has help from the Small Farmer Law Clinic at UC Davis, so we've been working with them to know more of what's going on in the weeds of the legalese, because there's a lot that we don't understand or we don't have the money to understand. And
People don't realize that a lot of our water law or even land use law was written so it couldn't be changed, but it's also written back in the 20s, 30s.
Even before that.
Even before that.
Groundwater. Groundwater, what I tell people is groundwater laws are from the 1850s. That's when that statehood, and it's still, people don't really get it. Yeah. So what I tell people is like when groundwater laws were created and the ones that we're using until 2014, Napoleon was emperor of France. To give you kind of a sense of the time frame of the law. And so to jump back into CAF, and this is obviously a topic that we could go on forever. So
this could be an all-day conversation because there's multiple layers and multiple years.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's just so much going on right now that we.
That's right.
I'm just
it's
grateful
red
you're
hot.
here. It's red hot. Mm-hmm.
And so CAF has been around since the late 70s, and it's an organization that was formed to help the small farmers in the valley that were being kind of regulated out of existence. And so CAF's got, and it's the road to hell is paved in good intentions, right? Some of it was food safety, and so, it kind of started there. It's been around for 40 years, and now it's got an advocacy and water policy arm, which is the branch or the arm that I'm under. There's also ecological farming, technical assistance. We have an annual small farm conference, and the focus of CAF really is on equity for Californian farmers, specifically those that have been underserved, right, or have been marginalized, and that's kind of the focus of our work is to help these farmers, these small farmers, these family farmers, these black and brown farmers, tribes. And so the funding that we have is through the Department of Water Resources. It's the Underrepresented Communities Technical Assistance Program. There's another acronym for you, URCTA. So just know that we're here to help the underserved community, and specifically folks that have under 200 acres of irrigated ag. or ranchers that have under 1 million in annual beef sales are kind of our target. And what we
It's gonna be limited this year. People, if you have
That's
beef,
right.
you're in it.
That's
you're
right.
in it to win it this year.
And I was at the fair and talking to some folks, and I still think everyone's going to be pretty much everyone's under that. When the consultants for getting a sense of a groundwater charge determined, well, should we look at the ranchers? Are they using a lot of groundwater? And they did a simple study and found that it's very little groundwater use. So ranchers are not going to be paying fees. But yeah, so CAF is I'm the community groundwater organizer for SLO County, and I have 6 other colleagues in one in Monterey and a few others in the upper Central Valley and the Sacramento Valley, and then University of California Agricultural and Natural Resources has taken the San Joaquin Valley, and it's not pretty there. We've got so back to sustainability, right? So the goal is to help small farmers. That's what CAF is here to do, to give them information, to give them access to technical assistance. You have issues with wells or irrigation. We have funding to support the most needy folks, and everyone, especially in a drought year and with everything that's going on, needs help. So,
is there any kind of soil building education, soil building classes that you guys are offering?
Totally.
Because I'm just going to go really quick on this. Back in the day when we had no irrigation, right? What was the overall management and method that people did? Is they built soil. That's all they did, was build soil to capture any bit of moisture. And I'm remembering things. My history books are also in my journals and family conversations, is how crazy it is that we never went without. We didn't have to turn on the irrigation outside to have orchards. And I mean, none of our animals, live springs, captures of moisture, whatever we did, are we talking like that yet? Like, are we talking like, okay, let's just have your well for just in case. Let's start farming and pretending like it's not there. Are we there yet? Like, are we talking like this yet? Because we have the knowledge, we have the ability to, but we have it so easy. It's easy just to go and pay $100,000. I guess I can't, but $100,000 to somebody to come re-drill another well, instead of looking at my soil going, wow, I just scraped everything off of it. It's not capturing any moisture, but I'm not doing anything to capture it either. So are there any kind of those kind of classes or educational groups yet? Are we there yet? Like that we can actually start talking like this?
Well, I like to put those into categories that you can really determine what is needed for each portion of the road to get there. So you start with education, like you said. Number one, you have to find, what are we talking about here? How are we going to continue with our water resources or minimize water resources, no water resources in some, really extreme cases. But so education is your first branch, to move ahead. And then, like you said, technology. You have to look at low tech, high tech. What are the solutions and what is the implementation to getting those resources, corralled and managed. And then from there, it's renovation. So going out and really doing, like we said, the last step of putting those all into play. So knowing what, you want to do, knowing how to apply that, and then doing the actual implementation of that. And with that, then it doesn't become, such a nebulous thing. And I think that's the thing. There's so many inputs into the way we've been farming, and especially when you go into those different regions. You go to the valley, and I have some really good solutions I want to use, for looking at those issues, that become a issue of scale. And I think scale is always one of the biggest things. And I think something we've talked a lot about on our show is just looking at that. How do you sort of regionalize things or localize, these conversations or these workshops or whatever it would be, to actually get the information into people's hands so that they feel confident to either change what they're doing or to, add to what they're doing or take away, from what they're doing. That's kind of the thing. There's this, I think we don't have any real.
I think a lot of it too, though, is we have
standards
a different and newer population to this community too that has come from somewhere else, that saw the beauty of this place and said, okay, I want to farm, or I want to be a vineyard grower or winemaker or something in that world, right? And they came in and they purchased property, and they brought that idea and put it on that property instead of shopping for the property that was suited for what they wanted, right? Like, for the example, over the basin, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the basin still was covered in oak trees. Mm-hmm. Do an aerial of most recently over that region that we call the Paso Water Basin. Where did all the oak trees go? Just that, I'm just going to put that in perspective, just because there are so many new people now that have come with wanting to change it, instead of looking at what they have and getting creative with what they have instead of changing it, right? Like, that's also...
Well, that takes a lot of communication and collaboration. And I think, like you said, it's been a free-for-all. America is, open to the highest bidder and capitalists. And so when the industry really started to burgeon more, there's a lot of dry farm, properties that I know, whether it's from tomatoes to grapes, to trees. And hey, there's so many things with, techniques that really have outlasted, some of the fads. And there was a lot of people that came without education. And I think that was the biggest thing, is that population boom, and then really changing those practices without, having that collaboration or even just, kind of concern.
Yeah.
People didn't know.
Also too, it's like, where do we start drawing the line of, okay, we're using a lot of water to farm what we are, but also look at the amount of waste that we're producing. Look at the amount of grapes last year that are still hanging on vines and or got cut and just dropped or ended up in the dump. I am shocked to hear how much, and then now they're ripping grapes out because there's no industry for it.
Or that song, we ripped out walnuts a couple years ago and put grapes in. So it depends on where you are in the basin.
We're on the cattle market right now, but at the same time, you can't just turn around and plant cattle, right? Totally. You gotta actually be patient a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, when do we bring balance back into our system and not have so much of the same thing?
Right. It's a boom and bust cycle, and
the environment pays for it.
It's a bit of a race to the bottom and the status quo, because if you have a crop and someone doesn't really know where it comes from, really know its story, they just know that they want X, then you can make that happen. But does it work in the context, right? And that's, I think, what's really important. That Josh,
I think it's just,
and you were both.
We got to change the conventions. We can't just go business as usual and everyone's just head in the sand. Oh, but my grandpa did this and my grandma did this, and this is how they did it. In these days, everything's this dynamic changes. Especially water is one of the most dynamic forces on earth. And so I think that what we have to look at is going beyond those conventions and really looking at integrative approaches. You can't take these linear approaches anymore. When I go through the Central Valley, it drives me crazy. And I'm just going to say, it's few and far between that I have to do that. But you're going through and it's feedlot, then it's grape block, and then it's tree block, and then it's alfalfa block,
Right.
And it's just, everyone's so independent. We talked about it. It's almost the fault of America, and really fighting for what freedoms and independence and everything that we represent in the world. Is you got a double-edged sword where it's like, we don't integrate with each other, and everyone's in these same boats, but how do they get together? Starting to have more of the peer, like farmer to farmer type of actions, and just neighbors talking to neighbors. I mean, that's gone with, new people coming in and they don't know each other. There's so many now because the blocks are small. But going from, what I see in the Central Valley, it's like, okay, it floods every year. So it's underwater. I'm driving through there. There's just overpasses, barely making it, all these resources underwater. And then all the cows that stink to high heaven. And then all the alfalfa over here by itself and all the trees over here by themselves. And it's like, They're all friends. They need to go across property lines, across business lines. They have to integrate what they're doing. And they need not just be an alfalfa farmer. They need to be a cattle, alfalfa, tree farmer. Because you need to put the alfalfa intercropped between the trees and then run the animals over where the alfalfa is. And then let the whole thing flood all winter. You know, there's just so many solutions that are so easy, but it's so much easier said than done. You have to talk to your neighbors. You have to know who's in your basin, in your same boat. And when you do that, you network and you make a community that thrives. But right now, everyone just wants to go into their own place and worry about their own little linear problem. And there's no way to fix just the problem with what you're doing on your own property. Like we saw, the basin goes beyond all these boundaries and markers. I mean, it has to really go beyond ways. So I just think that having organizations that can translate some of these things that need to happen at a scale, but putting more community members in those groups to reach out to each other and start to make it happen. Like we said, I mean, there's just foundational blocks of America, and we're at a completely broken down place. You know, there's no conversations that go anywhere. That gets pulled in this section, it gets pulled in this direction, you know, from right to left. And so we have to rebuild what we agree on. And so when I started seeing people protesting or things happening to that degree, it's like, I don't want to know what you're against. I want to know what you're for. And I'll say that over and over again. How do we say what we're for if we're all for wanting to have long-term water resources? And how are we going to, create those opportunities?
How I feel right now. Like, okay, we protested it, and I was like, when I found that we actually won the protest, right? I kind of felt happy, but
just
lost
really
at the
quick,
same.
It was close.
It was close. It was.
It was 680 something out of 1,300. It was 53%, at least
right
what was reported in the Slow Tribune.
So the sad thing is,
so complicated it is.
Yeah, no, it's in, but that shows. But that's what I'm saying. Like for as happy as I was, that it's like, okay, the fee. But what I was actually happy about was the fact that the turnout, people actually did turn out and protest, right? I was nervous because it is August. Most of the time, people aren't paying attention during this time. It is really hard to connect people and coordinate people right now. But they actually showed up. Like, I'm not in the basin, so it wasn't about me. I wasn't going to have to pay this fee. I pay other ones, but I don't have to pay this one. So, but at the same time, what I look at it as is the fact that, wow, community actually showed up. Makes me sad because the only reason why they really did, because they are going to charge a fee. Okay, now what though? Like, yes, you and I both talk about, and I'm sad because, again, I kind of just slide it out there because everybody thinks it's done. I'm like, no, they're still formed, you guys. We still have all this other that we have to still deal with. Yeah. You have to still deal with as a property owner. There's they have Prop 26. What does that mean? It means that they can still form, they can still generate. It's just different in the way that they accumulate money. And it can't go towards infrastructure is kind of how I read through it too. But they can still generate money. Right? So, and there isn't a protest on that one. Yeah. They can still form. So, understanding all these legalities and the ways of layers of all of this, yes, I was excited for the fact that community stepped up. I was frustrated because it took controversy and drama to get them to show up. But at the same time, maybe now that they are paying attention, maybe this is the time that we utilize this not to create more negativity, not to create more drama and one side versus the other. Let's bring them together, you guys. Let's talk. Let's share ideas. Let's share ideas to the point of examples, not what I read or Google said or I heard. I have a really good saying about how things were done before. I have my grandfather who, passed away at 93 years old. And up until he was like 85, even in Idaho when they moved, he formed a breakfast morning. Like they would go have coffee, 5:30 every morning at the coffee shop. All the growers and land movers, my grandfather was a tractor man, they all got together, and that's how they talked about their news. They never turned on the news. That's their network group. That was their network. 5:30 every morning. You know what he called it? The liars table. He got all the liars together and put them in one table, and they had their conversations. So I'd always go, come on, honey, let's go to the liar's table at 5:30 in the morning because I was the only grandchild that was up. So, this is what I'm saying. Like, do we need to form this group? And it's not about what we've been told. Bring the experiences of what you know and what is there to share, because we have to move forward. We have things coming still at us down the pike. How do we get above it and get better from it?
Yeah, let me try and tie together both the, rational, logistical kind of view of what do we do next, and the like big picture, nature-based solutions that Josh is speaking to. Really, what we know, going back to your first question, was if we are practicing good stewardship, aren't we going to get better results? And the answer is resoundingly yes, right? So if you're moving your cows around and you're letting your pasture rest, then you're going to have better water infiltration, right? Mm-hmm. If you're integrating your crops and you have tree canopy, it's going to buffer from storms, and the storms get flashier and more infrequent, right? And so these are kind of common sense solutions that CAF has an entire branch dedicated to. It's their ecological farming branch, and it's something that people need demonstration farms. They need to see it. You need to use all of your five senses, all of your senses, true. Even your sixth sense. It's got to be, it has to be really kind of an awakening where you're in a space that is resilient, is healthy, is functional. And it's great to talk to both of you that have been practicing this for a long time. My family, I come from a family of landscapers, so we've kind of been doing this. So it's really like in our bones, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, we all have to touch the land. And I mean, that's the biggest point that I love to make is just, especially through every, indigenous friend I ever met, like, give us the land back because we're going to do something with it, as opposed to let it go, fallow, or let it get, overdeveloped in all these ways. So I think that it's not only having the conversations, and like Melanie saying, what's the next step that we can actually implement? And so having some kind of models or groups that we come to just discuss it. Oh, that's what you're going through. This is what I'm going through. Oh, I could really help you because I know that experience, or I have this equipment. And I think that's what I meant to say with like, the Valley. Everybody's in the good old boys club of, their industry. And so when you can get together, that's where I've gotten the most help I've ever needed, when I was in a networking group of my peers, and so you're going through that same pain and you know what's going on. And I think that it's just so much easier than even having to create something new or like call it something new. It's just, what is our best management practices? And I think those have to cross lines that are environmental, economic, and social, and again, those always come down to how do we agree with each other so that we can face these problems. Everyone knows how to farm, and all these places. I mean, people have been doing it for generations. So it's not that we're not able to do what needs to be done, but it's just, finding those order of operations and sharing it in a more, bigger scale and complexity of how many people are now touching the space or not touching the land. So it just is really interesting that, it is so difficult. So I don't know what it's going to take to have, a liar's meeting in every town, or what it needs to be.
We got to meet at the liar's table. Who's going to give the first lie?
Yeah, and that's just the best name for it too. I know tons of, farmers in all these bigger places too, where that's who they're hanging out with, right? And that's who they can help each other.
My grandpa used to say, if such and such says that he needs, 10 pounds of fertilizer, he's fibbing. So you either...
He's putting 90.
Yeah, he's putting 90, exactly. So...
He's going to give up the secrets.
Yeah, so, there's that kind of conversation. And you go into these meetings, all I think of is, well, such and such said, and I think of my grandfather's comment of, come on, honey, let's go to the liar's table. And I'm like looking at him, why would we want to go hang out with people that lie at a table, Grandpa? And he was like, that's where you get your information from, right? And that's, it's funny to me how we've come to here with water, land use, farming. But when it comes down to it, the ones that are in the soil, the ones that are doing it, are the ones to learn from. And that is where I am excited to have you here. We are at our time. So, we all have to I have animals to feed. You guys You guys got to go and see if the fog's going to blow over my hill so I can have some air conditioner. But Jesse, thank you. You need to be a regular because there is this conversation that we need to constantly just keep putting it out there and inviting. Josh.
Yeah, he's gonna throw us a party now with calf
Maybe
money
we need to have a party at
talk about
Nature's
farming.
Touch. You have my kitchen. Jesse, we gather farmers to the North County and let's do this.
Let's get them to the table, for
we'll
sure.
have a party. Josh likes to play in the kitchen. So, we'll put
That's
Miguel. You're
We'll
going to have to eat
Jesse's
vegetables,
farm
my
and then
friend.
we'll be there.
We got to get him to eat vegetables.
Well,
See?
yeah, everyone's got to learn something from the Liars Table, right? And
Yeah.
we have a meeting coming up at the City Farm Slow this Friday, August 8th at 1 p.m. And it's going to be on, it's with a bunch of other partners on food safety.
Can
we're
I ask a
planning on
question?
having more meetings as
What
well.
farmer do you know that can go on a Friday at 1 o'clock? I want to go, but I can't. Especially food safety because you know what? USDA ends at 3:30.
I know.
So
Yeah, evenings are
it's
easier.
hard. I want to go, and that's what I'm going to put that one out there because
That's
I
a
saw
tough
that
one.
one.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And
I would love to be there because food safety is every single day.
we'll
with
have to have something on
my
the weekend.
HACCP plan, my inspectors, everything that I deal with every single day. So I really badly want to attend that one. But that's when I'm like, Friday at 1 o'clock.
I'll bring you the
Inside.
Friday
the
at
Spark
6, we'll
notes.
bring the drinks and the
Yeah,
food. We'll be there.
that's food safety. At 6 o'clock. All right, Jesse, give your contact. When people see this, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, you can reach me by email at it's Jesse JESSE at caff.org. And you can call me. It's 805-994-9862. And I'll be working on this. My contract is up in February, but I don't think the groundwater basin is going to be balanced by then. So, we got till 2040. And I just think that's, my goal is to build a network. And then that's, like Josh said, that's where the solutions start, is us connecting.
Yeah, well, you heard it here. We're going to put, it down that we're all going to, get together again. So I look forward to that time and
It'll be kinda
glad to
fun.
catch up with you both today.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Likewise.
Have a really good week. We'll be back next Monday.
Cheers.